He's spent years photographing gold mines, oil fields, and genocide, following the world's poor and forgotten people. And more recently, the planet's last undamaged places. The Brazilian photographer Sebastião Salgado, who's lived much of his life in Paris, is being given a place in France's prestigious institution for renowned artists, the Academy of Fine Arts. 40 years of work in 120 countries. He's one of the most important living photographers. Sebastião, hello.
How are you?
I'm very well. How are you doing? Congratulations.
Thank you very much. You're very kind.
Only 5 photographers have held seats in the Academy of Fine Arts since it was created in the 1800s. What does it mean to you?
Well, it means that take too long that photographers come in. There is about 11 years that photographers arrived here. And what is amazing, because what gave the base for the cinema is the photography. The cinema arrived here much before than photography. Photography just came 10 years ago, but here we are. And now we are fighting for more place for the photographers and to create a real representative department of photography inside the Academy.
Mes chers amis, me retrouver ici dans ces lieux emblématiques de la culture française est pour moi d'une très grande émotion. Je suis né au Brésil, je suis fier de mes origines, je les revendique, mais je suis brésilien et français.
It was in France that you took your first photographs back in the 70s. You were an economist at the time. What was it that you saw through the lens that made you want to become a photographer?
Yes, you see, till when I arrived in France, I've never made any photography. My wife, she's an architect. She made her study of architecture here in Paris, and it was necessary to her to buy one camera to photograph the projects of architecture. And I saw for the first time through a viewfinder. And from this moment, photography made a total invasion in my life. And took me a few years yet to take a decision to become a photographer. And from this moment, from the first picture, I had no more way to go back.
One of your most famous projects, and also one of the most difficult, was migrations.
Yes.
You visited 35 countries. It took 6 years or so. You spent time amongst the world's migrants and refugees. It was a very difficult time. When you and your wife came to France, you were sort of refugees because it was during the Brazilian dictatorship. What do you feel now when you see the images of the current refugee crisis?
Well, it's yet my story, because I came here as a student, just after we became refugees, until now we are migrants. And that story I know very well. I spent about 7, 8 years to photograph this story that you made a reference. But this is a story that I finished to photograph in the end of the 90s. The pictures I show in a book, in a show in the year 2000. But they are completely new pictures till now, because the story is exactly the same. And we have the impression that it's worse now than it were before, because the crisis of the refugees arrive in Europe. But it is not. It is about the same situation. Before were with Vietnamese, Cambodians, in Asia, all displacement of population in Africa, and plus the hundreds of millions of people that abandoned the fields in direction to the towns in the last 30, 40 years with the change, the way to produce in this planet, provoke a huge transformation in the organization of the human family.
And over the past 40 years, your photos have told the bigger story of the social changes of our time. Since you started taking photographs when you were like 26, what's the biggest change that you've seen?
You see, you had a lot of changes. We have a huge destruction of a big part of the environment of our planet. When I started photography, the Amazonian forest was yet there, close to 100%. The huge forests in Indonesia, in all East Asia, were there yet, in Africa. Today they are no more. When I started photography, majority of the population of the planet were rural population. Today we close a point where have the majority of the population of the planet are urban population. The way to produce in the planet, we had a way to produce in the planet when I started photography, where the labor, the hand power, was integrated in the all levels of the production. And after a while, is the intelligent machines that are producing, and the humans are take care of this machine. We had a fabulous transformation in the planet, in the communication, in everything.
You're often described as a social photographer, also an artist, also a journalist. When you were younger, they call you a social activist. How do you see yourself?
I see myself as just a citizen, as part of this new revolution that is happening with the Homo sapiens that we are. And photography that I do is just a mirror of the society that I live on it. And I made my studies in economy that had a lot to place my behavior, my way to think, my ideology, my ethic, my aesthetic link with the historical moment that I'm living. And in this sense, my pictures represent a little bit of our history. But my pictures are not made by one activist, by one photojournalist. My pictures are my way of life. My pictures in what I believe, what I feel, what I believe that is nice, what I have a big despair. And my pictures are exactly this, my way of life.
And when you look back at photos that you took for your project Workers, which again was a project that took 6 years, you visited many countries, and you see those photos that made you famous of the Cerro Pelado gold mine, what do you think when you see them?
When I take these pictures, I was very proud to be part of the human species, because the humans that I saw in this picture, they were transformers. They are dealing with raw material transforming in goods that you use in our normal consumption. And the human being is a huge worker, transformer. In this moment, I was very proud. But the next project that I photographed, the Exodus, the movement of population, I was not very proud to see how violent we are, how terrible you are between us, against our planet, but most violent against ourselves.
And it was that project that nearly made you stop being a photographer?
In a moment, I stopped to photograph, absolutely. And I stopped to photograph, and we went back to Brazil, and we tried to be farmers. And the land that we received from my parents were so degraded that to take a decision to rebuild ecologically this land, to replant rainforest there.
And what about your latest project, Genesis, where you're focusing more on nature and ecology? What are you hoping to achieve with that?
Well, doing this ecological project in Brazil, I became very close to the nature. I had taken the decision to abandon the photography. And after that, I came back to the land, to the planet, to raise this forest with Leila, my wife. Came inside me a big wish to photograph again. And I went to photograph what was pristine in the planet. And I turned around 80 years, work in 36 or country, or different regions in the planet. Approximately 32 regions or countries in the planet. And for me, it was a huge pleasure to see that we have yet about half of the planet that is yet there, that we do not destroy.
And I wanted to ask you about some of the other photographers. Another photographer who's in the Academy of Beaux-Arts, of Fine Arts, Yann Arthus-Bertrand. He's especially well known for his book Earth from Above and his film Home. He is an environmentalist and also a journalist. Are there similarities between you two?
Absolutely. I believe that Yann is one of the persons that provoked the most big conscience of the planet with his books, his shows, his films. And it's amazing what he accomplished with his images. We are very close, we are very close friends. We are in the same way, with the difference that Yann has one environmental organization, urban organization, and we have an environmental rural organization. He's in France, we are in Brazil, but we are in the same movement.
Sebastião, we're coming up to Christmas. If you could give one present to the world, what would it be?
We be asked the planet to go back, the population to go back to the planet. And we must go back to our planet, at least spiritually. We must do something. The contrary, we will disappear as a species. And in this Christmas month, is the only thing that I can ask for every person that hear me, is to mind about the planet. Think in the planet, go back to the planet. We are nature. We must go back to the nature.
Sebastião, thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure. Thank you very much.